On this week's episode of Friend Code, the wonderful 101 is finally coming to the Switch, Daemon X Machina is coming to PC, and Nintendo President Shuntaro Furukawa doesn't seem worried about the new consoles affecting Switch's business. Hello everyone, welcome to a new episode of Friend Code. I'm your host, Michael Damiani. This week, I'm joined by Kyle Bossman.
How are you?
Daniel Budworth.
Hey.
How's it going, Blood?
Is this Pikachu standing in like sour cream and chives? What's happening here?
Oh,
Snow.
it's supposed to be snow with some little leaves of grass popping out, but I can understand.
Shadows.
Yeah, okay, so
It's
Kyle.
a Groundhog Day thing.
This is the first time I think you've seen this one, Kyle.
I saw it on the shelf and did not fully appreciate what I was looking at.
Okay.
Wow.
Okay.
We'll review that
We're
in
very
a couple of months.
So we are very close.
Yeah.
They come out towards the middle to the latter half of the month.
Mm-hmm.
February will be the last one of this collection of 12.
Oh, okay.
They have, I would guess maybe in 2 weeks they'll probably go on sale. So that episode where we'll have Kyle come back on and rank each of these will happen in March probably.
I'm looking forward to it. I will take that assignment very seriously.
I didn't realize we were adding new ones. That's cool.
Oh, really?
Each month, yeah.
It didn't seem like it was getting bigger ever.
I get, like I looked at them one time, and I don't know. I didn't realize it. I didn't notice it was growing.
I mean, they're themed on the seasons. I mean, not all of them do the best job of that, but I mean, that obviously, looks like Thanksgiving, fall.
Leprechaun over
Yeah,
there.
Leprechaun.
I think it's one of those things where it's like, oh, I didn't notice that one before, rather than, oh, there's a new one. Yeah.
I can understand that one. It's also hard to spot the Pokemon in some of these as well. Who is it that didn't understand that this was a Pokemon right here?
Oh, sure.
Someone I had on didn't know that was a Pokemon. Thought that was just another thing of leaves and
To listeners, we're looking at a Pumpkaboo.
that's what it is?
Pumpkaboo.
Okay.
Yep.
I'll admit I didn't know the name.
Yeah.
But I knew at least it was a Pokemon. So I was worried. There's going to be no news for this episode of Friend Code. I was worried that we were going to have to do another kind of evergreen episode. Mm-hmm. And then, boom, just like yesterday, just so much news happened yesterday. Some of it, let's kick it off with Platinum Games.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, earlier this week, I think it was Sunday of this week, Game Explain, actually, the crew at Game Explain put out a report saying that they had from a very reliable source that the wonderful 101 was going to be getting a Switch and PS4 port, and it was be done through Kickstarter, and the announcement was imminent.
Yeah.
And then that was Sunday. So then yesterday, everyone's sitting around. So where's that imminent announcement? Game Explain.
There was in between. There was the teaser site, the Platinum teaser site,
the Platinum 4 site. Platinum 4, which kind of to me conjures up memories of the Capcom, the Capcom 5.
Right. Yeah.
It was very, and just seeing as that those people went on to go to Platinum pretty much. It's like, this is a good bit of nostalgia right here. I kind of like that. So we got a teaser site. People are like, this might be it. And then later in the day, boom, first announcement, the wonderful 101 Remastered.
Yeah.
Coming to, well, actually, it wasn't coming to anything at first because it was a Kickstarter. It was a Kickstarter. And the first goal was $50,000 for a Switch version. It's pretty.
Yeah. Which some people have called out.
Yeah.
It's cute.
Some people in the industry have called out. They're like, well, $50,000 wouldn't pay one person for a year, but okay.
So to me, let me illustrate this.
And also, they're actually coming out in April, right?
Yeah, so
some people have actually said, is this the price for just certification on the platform?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting to think what the cost is going to, because it feels like with all the information they put out there, this thing is pretty much near done, if not already done. They have a release date. It's not like this Kickstarter was going to make or break this happening, it seemed like.
Right.
Because also they got new backing from Tencent as well, which also comes into a little bit of the controversy that is surrounding the decision to go with a Kickstarter for this. Also, just the fact that this had been a rumored game, or a game that people wanted to see come to Switch. With all those Wii U ports happening, games that deserved a second chance, the wonderful 101 seemed like one of the most perfect fits for that. Mm-hmm. Got overlooked, and this is a game that they could have found a new life on the Switch. And now it's not only coming to Switch because it hit those other milestones on Kickstarter, it is coming to other platforms as well. And I want to start the conversation here because that's kind of like the gist of it. One thing real quick, one of the funny of the rewards you can get as a backer.
Yes.
One of the rewards we have to call out is that you can get blocked by producer Hideki Kamiya if you want.
Yeah.
Kamiya will go in there and tweet at you and block you.
And
So
I don't know if we covered this, but after the Kickstarter went up, then one of the little stars on the Platinum 4 site turned into it was like an abbreviation. It was like W101
KS.
like RKS.
Yeah. So for me, this is kind of exciting. For the Platinum 4 part of it's the exciting part. I'm also happy that the Wonderful 101 is getting all this attention. The Kickstarter is doing fantastic. It's like at 1.28 million right now in a little over a day. And yeah, just seeing this game getting a nice second life. But at the same time, I think there is something else that needs to be looked at as well in regards to companies making a decision to go the Kickstarter route, why they go to Kickstarter route, and then, how do fans feel about that? And I want to start with a question from one of our patrons, from Victor. Do you believe the Wonderful 101 Kickstarter allowing for PC and PS4 ports? So let me clarify this real quick before I finish the question. This question is actually about strategy.
Okay.
So there's one thing I forgot to include in this story here. I'm sorry, we're backing up for one more second here. The process of how this happened. Platinum Games approached Nintendo first before doing any of this and said, hey, we would like to bring the Wonderful 101 to Switch. What is that process going to entail? And they kind of pitched their ideas, and Nintendo's like, you either do it with us, with our financial backing, or we have no involvement and it's all on you. You can do whatever you want, but we're not helping you out at all. And Platinum Games like, well, it kind of seemed like Platinum Games still want to do a Switch version of this. They wanted to make this happen, and they came to a deal where basically they said, you can go do this on your own and fund this, and it can come out on other platforms, basically. So this is a game I thought would always, if there's going to be a port, it was always going to happen on Switch.
Sure. But
because of this discussion that happened behind the scenes that Hideki Kamiya was able to talk about in an interview recently, I believe with Kotaku was the interview it was with, basically shed some light on how this came to be. So that is why it's coming to other platforms, but it's interesting Nintendo's decision-making in this, allowing a game that is going to be on other platforms now. So fast-forwarding now to where we are, this question is about that decision, why Nintendo would do something like that. So again, from Victor, do you believe that the Wonderful 101 Kickstarter allowing for PC and PS4 ports is indicative of Nintendo loosening its single-platform strategy? We're seeing Sony move towards that with MLB and Horizon coming to other platforms, and Microsoft has already been doing console PC for a while now. Love and respect.
No, I don't think it has anything to do with that. Yeah, this is totally this is a situation where, there's sort of different levels of publishing a thing sometimes, right? And Nintendo does kind of do this, where they will have things that they're involved with. They will assist in the marketing. They will be the ones to make sure everything that needs to happen in terms of the publishing logistics happens. But in essence, it's still Platinum's game, and I think that they're going to let Platinum do what they want with it. Now, I think Bayonetta 2 could be a whole other ball of wax because Nintendo was way more involved with that. They gave them, the Mario and Zelda and Star Fox stuff to work with and put into that game. And so, I think that would be less likely to happen. I think it possibly still could, but they would have to take those cameos out in that case, I would think.
Another one that also brings up even a more recent one, but with Astral Chain did come up in interviews recently when this announcement happened, and Platinum Games clarified that the IP is co-owned between them and Nintendo, so that there would have to be a discussion even on something like that if it were to make a new version, especially for other platforms as well. You said Bayonetta, another good one. I still think the Wonderful 101 was also in this boat. It just might have been a lower priority for Nintendo in terms of we're okay with you as long as you're the ones doing the funding for this. If we don't have to fork over any money for this, as long as there's a Switch version, we're cool. And it's I'm kind of curious if all the versions will be at parity, because a thing I've heard in the past about Nintendo, this goes to that GoldenEye rumor. Like
Okay,
this is all
yeah.
rumor stuff, but one of the reasons supposedly the deal never made it through was because higher ups at Nintendo were not happy with the possibility of a GoldenEye, the remaster version, the HD, being on like 360 and it would run better, whereas Nintendo would just get back the OG GoldenEye for like their virtual console service and stuff like that. They were not happy with that trade. They're like, no, we want like the version that runs the best needs to be on like all systems. Like you can't have a better version of the game. So I wonder if there'll be any of that here that comes out, because they have been kind of tight-lipped about what changes they're doing. They've talked in like more at a philosophical level about the game, about potentially making it a little easier to access, like making the user better understand how to play.
So I never really, grabbed onto it the way a lot of people have.
So I'm curious if those details will ever come out. But besides that, I agree with you, Bloodworth. I think because this is a joint venture here, it's different than like a Nintendo first party game. Like Nintendo saying, hey, let's put this on PC or try this out. I don't think we're seeing that anytime soon.
Right. It's weird. I feel like Nintendo has never respected Wonderful 101 too much. To me, it's like, hey, how come there's not even a trophy in Smash Bros? How come I can't summon one of the 100 Wonderful 101 into Smash Bros? Not marketed heavily, just kind of put out and forgotten. Maybe that's just what you do with a game that doesn't sell that well, but obviously it has meant something to Platinum, much more than it has meant to Nintendo.
That is a very good point, Kyle, because actually Kamiya actually revealed why they felt so strongly about pursuing this course of action was actually because they didn't think the original release reached the audience it deserved, his own words.
Well, and that goes back to the Wii U, base, and it, being a very small base to begin with, and then B, being very Nintendo focused. There was a lot of third-party support there early on, and between those two things, it all dried up because like, okay, nobody's buying this platform, and the people that are buying this platform only buy Nintendo games. So what are we even doing here? So,
yeah, I mean, we saw not recently. I guess it was a year, 2 years ago now. I can't even forgetting. But when the Bayonetta 1 and 2 came to Switch, finally. And the Bayonetta 2 sales either eclipsing or very quickly approaching the Wii U sales, in a much shorter time frame. That absolutely proves the point that the platform part of the argument that Wii U just didn't have the install base, but also I think it also showed a little bit of that. Yeah, Nintendo IPs tend to do a little better even on a floundering system like that. Same thing with N64, some of the best games.
Well, I think it's even more amplified, right? Yeah. Because it's Switch and Wii, other publishers were able to find success because you had that casual audience, you had a broader audience, and so there's more people like that. The people that bought the Wii U were pretty much, we're hardcore Nintendo fans, we're going to buy anything no matter what, and so then they're just not as interested in some of the other stuff.
Yeah, do you even remember? I mean, sure you do remember, but let's remember that reveal of the Wii U when they're talking about third-party support, and they parade out Batman, Assassin's Creed and Mass Effect, these years old games that you're this is your big third-party support, and it's
kind of like Stadia, huh?
Yeah. Oh, Bloodworth is on a Stadia rampage recently. Just for those of you who aren't caught up.
I'm sorry.
Zombie U I was thinking of, which is kind of relevant.
Yeah, that was
because that did have its own multi-platform re-release way down the line. I forgot what they renamed it.
It was just Zombie.
Just Zombie.
Because Zombie was the original game that Zombie U was based off of.
Got
so
it.
They just made
Called it
again.
a remake.
Yeah. And so that was kind of interesting, but also again, just not the right market for that game, I guess. But so weird. I mean, why not? Why wouldn't a zombie game blow up like zombie games blow up everywhere else? It's just, as Blood said, it's a very specific market got the Wii U.
For sure. I also think it's interesting because I've even made this point before that games, the whole thing about games getting a second life on Switch, especially Wii U games like this, taking it for granted that it's just going to happen. A lot of them have. This has been the case for, I think, almost all of them, and including even those the ports of Doom and Wolfenstein, like those as well. Those aren't like Wii U ports, but like ports of higher end games, still beating sales expectations from those publishers, saying, "Oh, actually, it sold better than we thought." So it's kind of interesting. Like Switch just kind of seemed like is like this miracle machine that like you put your game on it, it's just gonna sell a lot. But I'm gonna fast forward quickly to the next headline. I'm gonna work it into this instead of making its own thing. But the next headline I want to talk about real quick, related to this, is Daemon X Machina, a game that just came out late last year on Switch from developer Marvelous, is now getting a Steam version on February 13th. And you have to wonder why so suddenly they're going for this. It's going to be published by Xseed, so Nintendo has zero involvement with it. It's going to include all the content.
Which Xseed is related to Marvelous.
Yeah, they're very heavily interlinked
like
there.
A Western arm now. I don't know if it was always that way, if Marvelous eventually acquired them or what.
It's a weird history. But for as long as I've known, they've been so interlinked together. But basically, it's going to include all the content that ever came out except for specific licensed DLC.
The Witcher stuff.
The Witcher stuff, Bloodworth. Yeah, I knew you'd get that. But yeah, you have to wonder why so soon, and we don't have an answer for that. But I was just thinking about possibilities. I'm like, did it just not sell up to expectations?
I don't believe it did at all.
And I was going back and seeing what they
talk
said.
About Nintendo not being into a game.
Yeah.
It feels very much like Nintendo is just not that into this game. Like they were at first, and then once it came around time to release, it was just it felt like it was put out there pretty quietly.
I feel bad because I do think Daemon X Machina, like a lot of its development team is former Armored Core members. And I think they just had a swing and a miss on the Switch with the audience.
Yeah.
I do think
I also
PC
think
release
it was maybe too ambitious for the Switch.
That's
You know, like it's really big areas, big environments, big mech.
It's very taxing.
Not great frame rate.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So a PC port, which will solve all that stuff, actually be nice to
hopefully, yeah.
Well, assuming it's a nice port job, it'll be amazing to see a PC version of a Switch game running side by side, like a game developed for the Switch first and foremost, and then the port. Because we're never going to see that like for a first-party game unless you go like the emulator route. But seeing an official one's always a nice treat to see. But also seeing if maybe they capture a bigger audience with that, because that's where the audience was all along, was like on the PC. Because there has been several Japanese games that were put on Steam or PC or whatever and found like a second life basically. Seeing like, Vanquish coming out on there, Valkyria Chronicles also did it as well. There's been like some eluding my mind, but there's been at least 3 or 4 instances of like, whoa, this blew up on Steam or PC.
Yakuza games are on there now.
That was a good one too. It's nice to see, and it will be interesting to find out if this is the case, because it'll be the first maybe semi-decent sized instance of a game not doing as well on Switch but finding a better home on another platform.
Yeah.
Whew. Daemon X Machina. I mean, there's not really much else to talk about with that one, honestly.
To me, it's a great move. To me, I'm glad that these studios are able to take their games that they believe in and bet on themselves and just try it on a different market. And obviously with Wonderful 101, there's no way I actually would have said they do 1.28 million in one day. I would not have predicted that. It's more support than I thought that franchise would ever receive before the game comes out, right? So those are people who either played it on Wii U or just believe in Platinum that much that are willing to invest in something they've never played before.
Yeah, I'm really curious. I don't know if we'd ever see like a poll or a breakdown, but I'm really curious how much of it is people that had the Wii U version versus people that I really wish I had gotten a chance to play this game, but I never could because I didn't want to buy a Wii U.
So I will say I'm not backing this personally, but I will try it out when it comes out. Probably I'll try the Switch. I'll probably try all 3 versions actually, just to see how they play.
Sure.
But I'm a person who I played a little bit of the original Wii U version. Didn't play that much about it. And reading one of the interviews that they did recently talking about how they wanted to make the game a little bit more approachable for people, that they focus on cramming so much content in there that they didn't really focus enough on the user experience with the game. And they think they did a kind of a disservice on that end, that they could do a better job. I'm really intrigued to see how the reworkings of this game, what they do to make it a quote-unquote better experience. Like, I'm actually looking forward to that. So I will be one of the people who's diving in like, hey, I didn't really get to play it on Wii U. On a conceptual level, like, it just never drew me in, which is kind of weird because it's Platinum Games. And I usually try out everything they do, but for whatever reason, I couldn't get into this. Now, with all this buzz and stuff, it's like, absolutely, like, day one, going to be there.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably what they were like hoping for. Like, that they've probably this exceeded probably their wildest dreams with how well this is going.
Yeah, I think they've been very clever with how they've been hinting at it over maybe the last 12 months. I don't know.
Yeah.
You've seen hints from Platinum that this was coming. The funniest one, I think, was the image of Kamiya at his desk, and in the bet behind him, his computer is set to 1:01 o'clock, and the date was 1:01. And so it's very obvious this was coming soon. But like little things like that, I think actually build anticipation, get people talking, and so the people who see these people talking are curious about that thing. And so yeah, I bet a large percentage of the people who have put money in have never played this game before.
Yeah.
I think they made this an event.
Yes.
I think this is even if this was if this could have been announced in a direct and just had been exclusively a Switch port, I still think what they're doing is generating more buzz than that could have ever done.
Yeah.
And it'll be interesting to see how it pays off. But that still leaves a question here. The decision to go to Kickstarter route.
Yeah.
Right.
We've seen big companies do this with games before, obviously. This is nothing new. But when asked why they went this route, this is all they would say. This is from Hideki Kamiya.
Okay.
All Kamiya said is, this project is a unique opportunity to bring the fans together and see how far the game can go, which is why we went the crowdfunding route.
A unique opportunity to see how far the game can go. Mm-hmm. So I think that when you go to publishers, when you go to marketing teams, they don't believe you. They say, here's our market research. Here's how well this game will sell. And so they say, okay, I'm going to prove you wrong. And that's what a Kickstarter is in this case, in this one single case.
Yeah, I think it kind of is. I also think that it kind of works both ways, because it's like, yeah, you can make the port on your own. You've got the resources to be able to pull that off with the success of Nier Automata and those kinds of things. But at the same time, I think doing the Kickstarter, in some ways, it kind of just it serves as like your own in-house pre-order. Like you've got all your pre-order incentives, you've got like all of this extra stuff that you can provide for people, and you're not having to deal with the retail nightmare, right? You don't have to deal with those people that, we want our special thing that's just for us. It's like, no, all this stuff is going to be specifically for the fans. If you give us this much money, we'll block you on Twitter, all of this stuff. And then I think the other side of it is that now, because the fans have provided this extra funding, now they can also do more things in the game to kind of beef up the special features and the capabilities of those versions.
So I'm sorry, this is actually, they're self-publishing this, aren't they?
Yeah.
Cool. So this will just be published by Platinum.
Yeah.
Correct.
Which makes it hard for me, because then I'm like, who do I talk to at Platinum Games now?
Yeah.
But I do, so maybe instead of proving the publisher that there's interest, it's kind of like what Blood is saying, just risk aversion. You're putting less money at risk if you do a Kickstarter.
In this instance, this is what I think. I think it's more that. I think it's a little bit of both. I think it's to prove the viability of potentially the IP, if they want to do more with it after this release.
Yeah.
I think sales on top of like the backing of this will like all factor into that. But at the same time, actually, not just from like things we've read, but having worked at a company that did a Kickstarter for a project and getting to see how that worked, one of the fundamental reasons for it, because like obviously the company could easily have published the thing that like handled the production and publishing of this, but like they did the cost analysis, like there's this gap here. Like just doing it on our own, there's this gap here that we think is too risky. Mm-hmm. So if we could get some kind of like indication that we will reach this hurdle, then, you know, we'll come the rest of the way and meet, you know, the consumer. And that's what they did the Kickstarter for. It's like, if we can get to this amount, we promise we will fulfill all this stuff and cover like the full cost of it. But like, we need something a little bit upfront. So it is more like a pre-order thing, like in that Bloodworth. Yeah, for sure. But there's still people who have some questions about this.
Sure.
And we got 2 patron questions regarding the decision to go the Kickstarter route. The first one from Matthew. While a remaster for the Wonderful 101 is exciting for those interested, do you think there is a gray ethical line using Kickstarter effectively as a glorified pre-order system, transferring risk to consumers instead of venture capitalists or publishers? The spirit of Kickstarter for me, at least in the context of games, was bringing to life that which should have never otherwise been possible, Shenmue 3 being the most famous example. But a Kickstarter and then release for a product that already essentially exists seems a little strange to me. Could this lead to a slippery slope of products being held to ransom on Kickstarter?
Ooh, held to ransom. It's strong language.
And honestly, from the fan perspective, I can absolutely see how some consumers would take it that way. Because if you don't hit that milestone, it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
It will never come to exist. I think that happened with some Cowboy Bebop thing they tried to do recently for Funimation, actually.
Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on what the pitch is like, in a way. You know, like, if you are going out there and kind of very humbly saying, like, hey, you know, we can't do this without you. We really need your help to do this, you know, and it turns out that, like, you could totally have done this. Like, you don't need this money at all. Then it feels kind of disingenuous. And I feel, you know, and I understand that, like, some people just, like, perceive that, like, well, this is the only thing that Kickstarter is for. Like, you have to, like, need this money, otherwise you shouldn't be doing a Kickstarter. Whereas I think another way of looking at it is that, like, a goal doesn't necessarily have to mean that this is your budget. And in this case, it clearly is not. Like, the budget and the goals are totally different things. It's almost like you're just sort of, you know, you're celebrating in a way to, like, okay, like, we are confident that we will be able to do this if we're at this level. And so, yeah, this is the kinds of things that we can provide based on how much you're giving us that feedback, that input, that, you know, that cushion, right? I guess what you're saying, like, that closing the gap of, like, okay, we know for sure we're cool on this. Because even with, like, a lot of crowd support, like my favorite band, Stavesacre, you know, their last record went through a crowdfunding thing, and it has been a nightmare to where, like, years later, they are still fulfilling some of those higher end things.
Oh, geez, yeah.
Because the platform that they were using went under. And now it's just been up to them and their friends and this huge amount of money that they've lost, like, trying to fulfill all of these things that, you know, when they did this on that system, you know, they thought everything in the budget and everything was worked out, but then it turned out, like, no, we were actually having to put way more money into this than the fans gave us.
Yeah, the physical reward part, I think, has to be, like, a nightmare when you get out of hand with that. But at least, like, in this case...
T-shirt sizes and stuff like that running out. And, like,
But adding extra features to a game, you know, that's... I think they better understand what that's going to entail. Sorry, Kyle.
And I think in this case with Wonderful 101, it looks like the Yeti is handling that. And so you just have, you know, extremely experienced company who hopefully won't go under, like your friend's company, like the company they were relying upon. Because you're right, then you're suddenly doing self-fulfillment on this thing that you're not. Like, what if the Yeti goes under and you have to, like, print T-shirts and send them out? Yeah, I could see where that'd be scary. But yeah, so I think that there's definitely a psychology to it. I think that Platinum looks enough like an underdog so that people don't mind giving them money. You're right, Tencent just gave them a lot of funding, but I don't think that these are the types of games that Tencent funded them for, if that makes sense. And so to say, like, hey, why should it be us instead of venture capitalists? The reason is venture capitalists want stakes in the company. They give the company money so they could have partial ownership and things like that. And so it's better. If people are willing to spend $60 now because they trust this company so much to just make a good port of their game, I do think that is healthier than the company trying to find funding otherwise.
Sure. I want to quickly say patron Dustin, you brought up Tencent, and I did bring it up earlier. The question was kind of similar to Matt's, but
Sure.
I just want to acknowledge it because we're kind of addressing it already. Basically, how do we feel about the Kickstarter? They said while they're excited for the game, after thinking about donating, something just started feeling more and more off to me, especially since they just received funding from a giant company like Tencent. So that is part of the concern, is people are seeing Tencent just put like a nice injection into them, and they're like, can't you afford this? Like, that's going to be the question. A lot of like the average person asks, like, can you, like, you can afford to do this, right? It's a Wii U to Switch port at the very basic level initially. How much does that really cost and stuff? But I think more than just like the whole, going back to what we were talking about earlier, like pre-order incentive, but like showing something, you were talking about it specifically, Kyle, showing a publisher, maybe not a publisher specifically in this case, but to themselves and to like their backers, like Tencent, who just like gave them money. This is what they're like, why are you working on this project? Like, where's the money in this? Like, look all these people already putting their money where their mouth is before they even have the product. Like this, I think it's just how it works. You know, when it comes to capitalism, like you have to justify these decisions to people who are paying your bills ultimately.
Yeah.
And if you start doing things that they like start questioning, they're going to be like, yeah, we're going to take our money away. Or, you know, you don't produce results, and it's not as always as simple as can you afford to do this and stuff. Because even if you could afford to do it, if it's a questionable decision, it could cost, even if this was they did on their own, it was successful. What if Tencent pulled out? It's like, you guys are crazy and stuff. Like, no more money for you. They lose way more money from that than they could have ever gotten from whatever wonderful one-on-one's going to do, like money wise.
Yeah.
Just, I mean, not an expert in that, but like that's just going to be like what's going to happen, unfortunately.
Yeah, and it's like, and it's one of those things where if you still feel like it's a weird decision and you think it's kind of shady, then it's like, then don't contribute to the Kickstarter. Just buy the game when it comes out on
like
whatever
Damiani.
platform. Yeah,
Exactly. Like you don't. There's nothing saying you have to you contribute to this. I mean, it's totally fine to wait.
and especially now when it's like it's clear the game is happening. They've got they've got the pledges to make the game happen. You don't have to throw your money in the pot. You know, like a lot of it at this point, you know, is people that are saying I want to see how high it can go.
I feel like you gotta be. It has to be something you really want to see happen. Like you have to feel. I feel like you'd have to feel really strongly about it. And even if it doesn't come to fruition, it was just like the excitement of the possibility that it could happen. Like if you're at that level, that's your enthusiasm for a project. I think that's the threshold for someone like me to cross into. I would back this. I'm kind of like I'm good with this. But if you're just excited for the game, but like you don't feel that way, I would definitely say just get the game when it comes out. Like don't feel bad that you didn't contribute and weren't a part of what's going on right now. Like if you buy the game and you love it and stuff, you're still, you know, really being a part of it. Like don't have that buyer's remorse, because I've seen too many times where people back something and like, it didn't really go as well as I wanted, stuff like that. Just be cautious, I guess, you know, because
and honestly, like that plays in, you know, you're talking about like, you know, demonstrating to publishers or whatever in the future, and like that plays into it. Like, you know, if you have a great Kickstarter, but then nobody buys the game after it, then people are still going to be like, oh, you really want to make a sequel? You know, it's you know.
So, I mean, they do have incredible momentum now for the rest of the 3 announcements. So you're talking about, you open this with a Platinum 4, right? And if they announce them all on the same day, you know, they just would not have the impact. But now, after this one was such a huge success, what's the next one is such an exciting conversation.
It does. Hopefully they have planned this very strategically.
Yeah.
And they know what they're
doing. I'm
doing.
really curious because it obviously wasn't the next day. So is it next week?
How
long are we waiting?
They haven't said anything about like the next announcement, but also like hopefully it doesn't lead to another Byleth situation where you're building up with all these big announcements and then you end with Byleth with on its own, nothing wrong with it, but putting it at the end and all this build up to it, like you're building up to something, build up to something.
Yeah.
Don't make it be a disappointment and stuff like that.
And I think you can't do any more Kickstarters. I don't think you can do another Kickstarter with any of those 3.
This is the limit.
Yeah.
But we'll get to that in just a second. A lot of like theories and ideas about what those other 3 announcements could be.
Sure.
I have something from our patron Kerbu about they're equal parts excited and nervous to learn that our experience with the Wonderful 101. So I already admitted that I barely played it.
Yeah, I played like a demo or something like that.
My experience with the Wonderful 101 was E3
Ooh.
2011, when the Wii U was first shown.
It was shown in 2010. It had 2 E3s.
So it was 2011. It was definitely the second E3.
Wait, no.
Yeah, because the
2012,
first
sorry.
one was like that weird
Demo.
Zelda trailer and stuff like that.
Yeah, it did have 2 E3s.
Yeah. So wait, maybe E3 2012.
No, because it came out in 2012. So
Yeah.
you think E3 2012 is...
It was, the Spike TV thing, and they had to clear everybody out. It was really exciting because they're like, okay, nobody can see these games. And the one they were demoing was Wonderful 101. My first eyes on a game for the Wii U was Wonderful 101, and I was pretty let down.
So that's an example of build-up, and then
I was so excited.
let down.
We're finally leaving the Wii. We're finally leaving SD behind, Nintendo's first HD console. I'm so ready for this, and it's like, oh, okay, all right. And then I never played it when it came out. Just a lot of Nintendo Land.
Yeah, a lot of Nintendo Land was my experience with that at E3 as well. Kerbu continues.
Yeah.
It's Wonderful 101 is my favorite Platinum game by far.
Wow.
Thanks in part to how earnestly it wears its heart on its sleeve, but I acknowledge how eccentric it is. It's hard to ask specific questions about this game, but I think these quotes from Inaba and Kamiya from their interview with Kotaku provide some wonderful talking points in regards to the game's accessibility.
Oh, that's funny. Wonderful's in the game's title.
I know.
It's cool.
Very clever.
Yeah, neat coincidence.
Yeah, good use. So Asushi Inaba says they didn't provide the prompt for this, so I'm just starting with the first part of the quote. No, I wouldn't say it's the platform's fault, I think referring to Wii U.
Sure.
Of course, it's hard to say the Wii U was a success, but the Wonderful 101 had its own problems. So they're not fully blaming the Wii U for
Love
why
that.
it wasn't
Yeah.
that.
Love that.
Kamiya then chimes in, says, it made me think I should have worked harder on this element in the game. There were lots of things that were just impossible for kids. I want to go back and change that. At the time, we were trying to pack it with the most content we could, but it wasn't always refined. What we need to do is go through and polish things up and make sure the game is more approachable.
Cool.
Nice.
So this is what I was alluding to earlier. This
Yeah.
is the most they've really said about because it is called the Wonderful 101 Remastered. So it's like, what are you actually doing about this?
Yeah,
Right,
well, I mean,
graphically, I don't
what I
expect much,
remember
yeah.
is it being really kind of hard to wrap your head around because you were doing a lot of drawing. We were either
To change the
drawing,
Yeah, the
you were
formation,
drawing
yeah.
either on the touchscreen or trying to make do okami kind of thing, trying to make the controller, the analog stick, draw the object. And so it was hard to do that and react quickly, in just the span of a demo, picking it up in a way that felt good.
I remember people
Which a
saying
lot of
the
people are
game
probably
was,
gonna disagree
was
with me right
challenging.
now, yeah.
I remember a lot of complaints about it being too challenging for what it was. That's the one thing that sticks out for me. So I'm kind of curious. I'll be very interested to see what they do. The last thing I want to say about Wonderful 101 Remastered is I'm very curious to see which version actually performs the best sales-wise. And if one version has an advantage of the other, which one might be received the best overall. So we're going to have 3 versions, Switch, PS4, PC version. And I'm curious. I'm actually curious about
too.
this for once.
I'll say PS4. I'll say Platinum's biggest fans are playing on the PlayStation 4.
I would say if this was Bayonetta, I absolutely would agree with you. Or something like Vanquish. I can believe it will happen. I can believe PS4 might be and that. I'm still gonna say Switch. I'll stick with Switch.
Blood.
Well, you don't have to pick one. We're not.
It is hard to pick. It's hard to pick.
But
because I'm thinking about PC as well. I mean, it's hard to say, really.
I don't think there'll be as much PC as those two. But yeah, it is definitely interesting to think of.
I think it'll be close. I actually think it'll be pretty close.
Hey, did we talk about the Xbox snub, by the way? It's not even in the stretch goals yet.
Oh yeah.
It's a little weird.
Yeah.
I couldn't find anything about that actually. Did you see anything, Kyle? Actually, or
For how deep it is in stretch goals? No. I mean,
or
like,
what's up? What's the deal with it?
I mean, they have to be presuming what their market is on Xbox One is less than those others, and so it wouldn't have the priority that the others would have.
That would be my guess.
So, but I just feel like it's got to come in eventually as a stretch goal, but maybe it never. I don't know.
I mean, they might not. There have
Yeah.
been some things that just like it's not worth it. No matter like you
Yeah.
know, it's just not going to happen.
Sure.
I think that's the case here. But speaking of Microsoft and Platinum Games, that does lead to the rest of the Platinum 4 stuff. We kind of
Right.
started to talk about what we might think those 3 other announcements. We have no idea when they're coming, what they might be. And I want to start off with something that was said by Asushi Inaba, one of the Platinum Games producers that we have been talking about already. They spoke to Eurogamer Portugal.
Right.
And they were asked about Scalebound.
yeah.
And Inaba said, whatever happens with this project, well, we can't really do anything with it unless Microsoft lets us. But it's a game we love, so if the opportunity arises, it's something we'd love to return to. So it's just, more of like, hey, we'd love to do this. There were rumors for the longest time that Scalebound was getting resurrected.
Yeah, I remember even reading
With the whole Microsoft Nintendo rumor stuff that
Yeah, right.
it was part of a trade-off or something like that.
Yeah.
It seems like that's obviously never was the case. It does seem like this project has never gone beyond the I wish we could do this deal. But I mean, if Nintendo is willing to work, and cut a deal saying, hey, go do this, do whatever you want to do with Wonderful 101, you think it's possible Microsoft they really want to do it? Microsoft's like, hey, do you think Microsoft would work out a deal with them, say you can bring Scalebound to another platform?
I think it's possible. I'm not 100% sure whether Microsoft would do it or whether they would see that as like, how much ownership they really feel like they have over it. And we're like, no, this is, that's ours. Don't even do it. It's hard for me to call. The other thing that's weird to me about that game is because of kind of the turmoil it went through, it's like, was it because Microsoft really didn't understand working with Platinum and understand like where Platinum was going with this, and they were basically screwing the game up by giving their feedback? Or was the game a mess and Microsoft did everything that they could to try to make it work, and it's like, no, this isn't working, so we're gonna pull the plug?
It's funny. So I think that the game was a mess largely because of some demands that came from the publisher.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's very, very likely.
Yeah, it's like I feel like what was initially pitched before we had I feel like the multiplayer trailer was the last we saw of this game.
Right.
I feel like that was the last year of it, where it's like, this is not the direction to take this, everyone. I feel like that, there maybe some publisher pressures turned it into the game that it ended off as before it was finally cut. So yeah, I think it's part of their collaboration really that undid the whole game in the end.
Yeah, I'm more inclined to believe that's what happened as well. This is a game. Scalebound is a game the company has said is like a huge passion project. Like, yeah, I don't think either. I don't think he wants to give it up. I think this is something he wants to happen. And it's kind of interesting because of the timing of it when it happened. Now we live in a world where, like, a post Sekiro world where Activision didn't bungle up a Front Software game.
Yeah.
It's like they let them do their thing. Like no microtransactions, like none of that.
And I
just
think,
make this game.
Activision in this
Yeah.
case might have actually smoothed out some edges.
Because they did work with Platinum Games before Sekiro,
Right.
and those games had some
sure.
problems. Some stories about like short development time, publisher request, and they probably learned their lesson saying, ooh, yeah, next time we work with a studio like this where they specialize in this type of game, maybe a single player experience, let them do their thing. Like, it will sell. And if you try and do anything else like it, like a multiplayer or forced multiplayer or microtransactions, whatever our usual monetization system is, it's just going to ruin it. It's going to fall apart.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if Microsoft would be willing. Like, I always thought they would have known that already, but like if they didn't know that, maybe they could learn a thing where, I guess, like, would they ever revisit it again? Like, because we're talking about like cutting a deal and stuff. Like, would
I
they
don't,
ever
I don't
come
think
back to it?
Microsoft would be involved. If they cut a deal, I think both sides want
Just take it
Microsoft
away.
out of that deal. So
Here's where I think it might happen though. Microsoft loves an E3 story. You know, they love putting a bunch of developers up on a screen and saying like, "Look at all of our developers."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it would be a good story to say Scalebound is back. They know that it would bring goodwill, and I don't know if it really would cost them as much. You know, just to say Platinum, go nuts, go for it. You know, like we don't really, you're doing nothing with this
Kyle,
IP.
if they did that at E3, like
Yeah.
the trailer came back and we're like, wait, is this Scalebound? And then at the end it like says Scalebound.
Yes.
And then it has a date at the end. Like it'd have to have a date.
They know.
But that'd be like, that would
Yeah.
knock it out of the park.
It would.
Because didn't recently Phil Spencer say he wanted a trip to Japan, talking about like the Xbox Series X development, like courting Japanese studios, because there is some criticism leveraged at Microsoft about where's your Japanese third-party support been?
Yeah.
And they're like, hey, we had a fantastic, tour, talked to a lot of studios stuff. Hey, maybe some exciting things. It's like, Platinum?
Yeah.
Scalebound? Maybe?
Yeah.
I think anything's possible with this at this point. But unfortunately, this pretty much confirms this is not one of the three
Probably not.
the remaining announcements. Very unlikely that
I think it's
Scalebound would be.
unlikely, but it's interesting that like that got published right now. You know, it's like right on the backs of that.
Hey, it could. I mean, I said it's unlikely. I didn't say it's not happening. We'll have to see. But that does leave other possibilities. And I'm just gonna say the most obvious one to lead off the conversation here about what we think the other three will be. Platinum Games is developing this other game you might have heard of called Bayonetta 3. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Maybe.
Yeah, big trailer,
You
like an
think maybe-
actual reveal.
You
Res
think like
time.
because we don't know what these four are. It does say the domain does say games.platinum4.
Yeah.
Whatever, but we've only seen a teaser CG trailer for this game. Could it
Right.
be like the formal unveiling of Bayonetta 3 with maybe a release window, release it like gameplay and stuff?
I hear you, because the trailer we had isn't really a real trailer.
Right.
It would feel a little underwhelming to me because we know of Bayonetta 3. It's not an announcement, but I could see that as the reveal. So yeah, I could see it, Damiani.
Okay,
Yeah, that could be one of the
That's
four.
what I was curious about because
Yeah.
it is a known, like the existence
This is
of it is
hilarious.
known.
Brandon is poking me about Temtem codes right now.
Oh my god.
Brandon. Brandon.
Right
I was
now.
gonna keep it to myself, but I was like, this is too funny.
He knows you're in the podcast.
Microsoft should go scoop up Temtem. No. Or
I mean-
Sony.
Yeah. I mean,
saying.
they should honestly.
That's not a joke, actually. I just wanted to acknowledge Bayonetta 3 because despite it being announced already, it potentially could be on there, but I do think a lot of people are kind of maybe hoping they're brand new announcements.
Yeah.
So our patron Bun has the first idea.
Okay.
Does Damiani or anyone else here believe in new life for Revengeance?
Oh no, I don't.
I really don't. Like, it's close, but like, in a way, I feel like Platinum probably wouldn't want to do it without Kojima.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, it's just really.
Very inclined to agree.
Yeah. Like, Konami might be for it. Konami might try to court Platinum for that. But I feel like Platinum might feel like this is like, no, we don't want to deal with you guys.
I also don't think this would be announced in this fashion.
Yeah.
This seems
Right.
like these are
It would
very
be Konami
more
led,
personal
yeah.
games, and this would be a Konami announcement. So, Bun, as much as I want that to happen, and any 3 new Platinum game announcements, like, hey, it got like there's a higher chance this time. I still think it's pretty close to 0.
Yeah.
Sadly.
Along that line of I don't think this is the time for that announcement. We know that Yoko Taro is working on another Nier game. I don't think that would be one of the Platinum 4.
Because that is what Snivy Link
Okay.
asked about. Not just Nier.
Probably Snivy.
Snivy. Is it Snivy?
The Pokemon is Snivy, yeah.
Thank you. I was like, it's a Pokemon, isn't it? Snivy Link. I apologize. I truly wonder what Platinum 4 is. Rumors abound about it being Drakengard 4. So instead of it being a Nier thing, and Drakengard's still Square Enix, though.
Yeah.
Which could be amazing. But of course, I think after all this time, there needs to be a Drakengard collection brought to all consoles as well, or even better, a remake. At the end of the day, all I truly want is Nier Automata on Switch, though. I will gladly double dip.
Wow.
So ports, or another new entry in something that is not Nier, because I do think Nier's announcement, whatever the next Nier is going to be, will be blown out by Square Enix.
Yeah.
It will not be this.
Right. I imagine. So, to me, this Platinum 4, I imagine them all being self-published games.
Yeah.
That's just what I'm imagining.
imagine that
Okay,
too.
so you don't
Yes.
think it'll be any like something like Dragon Guard will not be possible because Square Enix would
Right.
need to be involved as the publisher.
Yeah, like Babylon's Fall, probably not.
So you think these might be new IPs then, potentially?
I think we could see 1 or 2 new IP for sure.
Yeah.
Another one, and if you were gonna go back to the well that I'd forgotten about until I was like looking through, like what all is likely, what could happen. One that I thought maybe possible would be like a Mad World remaster or sequel.
So I've seen people talk about Mad World as well as Anarchy Reigns, which is the sequel to Mad World.
Yeah,
Loose sequel.
Anarchy Reigns I'm not that into, and I don't know that many people are, but
Someone's interesting idea I saw was like what they're doing supposedly with Wonderful 101 is like maybe a retooling and reimagining of Anarchy Reigns to add on to Mad World, which I think standalone would be great
Sure.
for a remaster or port job to Switch and other platforms, but adding additional content that works in Anarchy Reigns. I mean, I think there's a good candidate. Like Mad World's a good one. But
I can't see it working.
oh,
I can't see Mad World working 2020. I
think it's-
I think it was the right time on Wii to have this crazy black and white game with red blood and just this kind of visual effect, but I don't think it looks the same today. I don't think it has the impact today. I wouldn't do that one.
you make a good point, Kyle. I just wanted to acknowledge this
Yeah.
speculation, but I personally don't think it will happen.
Sure.
And I don't think it would be the best announcement, honestly. I know there are some people who love that game and
Yeah.
will get excited about it. Similarly, because this would involve other publishers, there was the longest running rumor about like Beautiful Joe and stuff, which is Capcom stuff, and like,
Oh,
but
wow.
also
Yeah.
Platinum being involved in reviving it or something as well with Capcom. And it's like like these are all things that I feel like will be done on their own terms. So I'm definitely more inclined to believe your argument, Kyle, and the philosophy that it will be self-published games, stuff that they have control over.
Yeah.
My question then is though, I've seen some dark speculation about like it's not going to build up to excitement. It's going to be like these are not the games you were looking for.
I think that's fair. Like
Mobile games. I'm talking about like mobile games.
Count on
Like
one gacha mobile game.
Yeah, like a gacha
Yeah.
mobile game. It was
Yes.
like the worst case scenario. People are like, oh, one of the with Tencent
At
involved.
least one.
It's gonna be a gacha
Yes.
mobile game.
Yeah. I think at least one of those is a gacha mobile.
I don't think necessarily because Tencent's
Really?
got a lot of investment with a ton of companies of all kinds of different genres.
Like,
They
that's a
just
good
bought
point.
Funcom, right? Or they're trying to buy Funcom.
Right. So I definitely think one is a multiplayer game as well. I think one of these 4
Wait, did I
games
say
is a
Tencent?
multiplayer game.
Forget not Tencent. Never mind. I was getting Psy Games and Tencent confused for a second because Platinum was doing work on a Psy Games Grand Blue game,
right, yeah.
like
The huge
MMO style
RPG thing,
one,
yeah.
and then they were pulled off of that. And I forgot Psy Games had any investment, but anyway, despite the Tencent comment, not apologize, but I might have been incorrect with that, meaning it would automatically be a gacha mobile game. It's a fear people have
Yeah.
that like these games
Sure.
will not like that. Wonderful 101 might be the biggest announcement. The other 3 won't be as exciting. But then again, why make a site like this? Why make? I mean, I get why. Make it a big deal. Make it an event. But
It's a
you're
proclamation like we're publishing now.
But you're risking a lot here.
What am I risking?
If these are like don't gain traction with anyone else, like Wonderful 1 was good, but the other 3 are like, what were these?
I feel like the next 3 announcements have the best stage now that they could have possibly had.
Yeah.
No, they
Because
do.
the Wonderful 101 propped them up. It opened up the stage. It blew out this great performance, and they're like, okay, next up is...
That's absolutely true.
Yeah.
But like they gotta fall through and knock it out of the park.
They do. Yeah.
And I mean, I love and respect
Love and respect.
Platinum Games,
Mm-hmm.
but I trust them way more as a developer
Yeah.
than a publisher.
Sure. Yeah. that's
So
fair.
I'm kind of a little worried if all we're speculating is true.
Yeah.
Like I'm secretly hoping that there is some other publisher involvement here that
Yeah.
they could have worked out a deal to like take a previous game or make a new installment in an existing series that they have been affiliated with it that might be involved in these announcements.
I think one of the 3 is an anime game, maybe like Trigun.
Ooh, why like style of Trigun or literally like like what goes
based
on?
off of an anime.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just making guesses.
Yeah, that's fair.
just one of my
That's-
guesses.
That's fair. I think they'd make a fighting game.
Would Platinum make a fighting game? No, I mean, so yes, but it'd be more like Anarchy Reigns.
Okay.
Right.
You know, like
Like an arena
or
brawler
Bleeding
type
yeah,
Edge.
maybe
game.
an
Yeah.
arena brawler. Yeah, I don't imagine a very tight 2D fighting game from Platinum.
Okay.
But yeah, they've got a style. I think it could work. You know, in ways better than Anarchy Reigns did. But yeah.
I wonder if they'll do anything original. Like, because, I mean, back in the day when a lot of these developers were a part of Capcom. Clover,
Yeah.
thank you. I was like, what was the name of the studio again? I just can't remember. But games like Beautiful Joe. What was the other one?
Okami.
No, the one with the letters and numbers. What was it?
Pianos 1?
Oh, Piano 2.
Piano 2.
Was it Piano 2 or Piano 3?
Piano 3.
And then the one that
I
got
think it might have been
canceled
3.
because
I don't know.
it's like they had some pretty creative
Oh,
ideas.
the Dead Phoenix.
The point I was trying to get,
yeah.
like, they had a lot of creativity there. They
Yeah.
went wild and stuff. So, like, Kyle, if it is self-published and they're making new stuff, I want them to go wild and crazy.
Yes, me
I
too.
don't want safe and like, oh, this is gonna make us a lot of money. It's like, no. Please don't do that, Platinum Games. Like, stay special to me.
Yeah.
Like, you retain that uniqueness that I like about you.
Yeah, you
and
don't want just a
don't
bunch
completely
of
sell
Bayonetta
out.
clones, right? Yeah.
Yeah, everything should not be a Bayonetta clone.
Because
Or-
you're making Bayonetta.
Yeah, they're already making Bayonetta.
Yeah.
We need more. Well, they announced the Bayonetta universe. There's
Yeah.
3 more. We're making a mobile spin-off gotcha Bayonetta game. We're making another Bayonetta anime. And what else would Bayonetta gonna do?
VR game.
Yeah, there you go. VR.
concerts.
Perfect. Yes, partnership with Hatsune Miku
Live
and Sega.
concerts,
Yeah, you could get up there and dance with Bayonetta. Yeah. This is the future that is coming for us. But, I mean, it's kind of nice to have something to look forward to with this.
Oh, yeah.
Because
This
now
is
we're going
fun.
to be wondering when these 3 announcements are happening. Will they be just done on their own terms? If they are partnered with anyone else, will they be done? Like, will Nintendo Direct? If it's Bayonetta 3, will it be a Nintendo Direct? And, like, we'll see Platinum 4 stuff with that? Who knows?
Yeah.
It's exciting.
In the absence of next gen news, heck yeah.
Yeah,
They're
this is
owning
great. The
2020
whole
so far. Yeah.
Yeah, way to make
Oh my
things
God.
exciting.
The stupid fake PS5 thing.
Oh
went
gosh,
around.
how many of you got caught by that tweet from the fake PlayStation account announcing the PS5 event? in
More than
February?
one. There were multiple.
A lot of people
accounts,
retweeted
yeah.
that. My roommate shouted it out. Shouted out the PS5 event. He goes, PS5 event confirmed for New York. It's happening February 15th. Went to our Slack without even checking anything. Wrote in our general PS5 event confirmed for February. And then I went to check the source. I went to Twitter, went to PlayStation. I'm like, I don't see it on their Sony PlayStation account. Where'd you see this again? It's their official account. I'm like, is it spelled right?
Yeah.
No.
It was not.
Remove the comment from Slack immediately before any of you commented on it. So I was like,
Yeah, I think Brad had it earlier the same day
okay.
before you got up.
Oof. That shows how antsy you are. We're also antsy for this rumored Direct. Where are you, Direct? It's going to get announced tomorrow. I'm going to be so pissed.
Oh yeah.
That's how it always
That's
happens.
the danger of podcasting, man. All the stuff we talk
Hey,
about,
you
like
don't
all
wanna-
the rest of these 3 games, everyone already knows
We got to be
about.
professional. I got to have a routine schedule. I can't just be like, friend code's happening sometime this week. I just want to wait till maybe that Direct gets announced and No,
You're doing the right thing.
we're doing the right thing. We're being professional. We're growing up. Speaking of being professional
Ooh.
and not worrying about other people, what other people think about you, Nintendo President Shuntaro Furukawa doesn't think the new consoles are going to affect the Switch's business. So, Nintendo recently had their investor briefing where they announced their record-shattering numbers. Not record-shattering, but good numbers. Things are
numbers.
looking good for Nintendo, and things are looking good for the Switch. Revised everything upwards, mostly for everything, including Switch stuff. We didn't cover that on this show, but I mean, that information's been out there for a while, so we don't really need to go over it.
None of it too surprising.
None of it too
Yeah.
surprising. Maybe the biggest news is Pokemon sales. Pokemon Sword and Shield selling
Yeah.
a ton of
we covered it.
units, but we covered it. There's always a Q&A session at the end of these. And one of the questions directed at Nintendo President Shuntaro Furukawa was, was asked about what the company would do in response to the new consoles launching later this year. The answer, translated by Video Game Chronicles, because this investor meeting was in Japanese and there's not an official English version of the Q&A out there yet. They haven't done that
Normally
yet.
They do.
They do eventually, but this was a translation by another site, so giving them credit. This is Furukawa's reply. I think there will certainly be a change in the environment as new products of our competitors appear, but we do not believe that the business trends of other companies will have a significant impact on our business. To further elaborate, Furukawa believes their software offerings will be strong enough to counter the new consoles, and that the Switch also benefits from being on a different life cycle than its competitors.
Yeah.
Believes that the Switch is further along in its life cycle, so it's got like better games and stuff, whereas the newer consoles, people are looking at like the hardware end of that. Like, so the software is still going to catch up to them, so they think they're at an advantage. So they think they start next gen. They think they start next gen. Not that, yeah. That's where they're on the side of the argument.
I think that they.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I think it's just that there's enough of a differentiation with the Switch that like.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's going to have its own sphere. It's in its own lane on the highway there. Whereas, like, PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X, like, you guys, you got to fight for who's going to be ahead.
It's so, the thing about that, Blood, and his own quote, we think we have the software, is that, I believe them. But they have third-party partners who are also trying to sell games on these consoles. And, like the recent EA comments where just like, we don't really see that as a good platform for us. And it's just right.
EA's been a weirdo.
That was really weird. So we're referencing a bunch of financial briefings came out from multiple, all the companies now I think have now done them.
Yeah.
Sony
Except
finally.
for Sony.
No, they did release theirs,
cool.
I believe. But in EA's one, this was covered on the Easy Allies podcast, like an episode or two
I didn't
ago.
actually bring this up, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I thought we talked about this somewhere. Anyway, we didn't even talk about Franco, but there was a question asked about, hey, where's your Switch support and stuff? Like, we love the platform. It's doing well. We got like 16 new projects in the works. Nothing to announce at this time. It's like the kindest ways they're saying, we like great's doing well. We just don't believe in it.
Yeah, well, and just saying like, hey, we recognize that Nintendo software sells well on Nintendo consoles, and that's the truth.
Yeah,
it's a simple truth.
It is the truth, but it's also not. That's not the whole story on Switch. Switch is, like you're talking about Bethesda, like all the ports Bethesda has been doing, and there's lots of stuff that. Man, what else was there coming? There's new Metro Redux is coming.
Redux is coming.
There's constantly people are seeing that there is
Witcher
money to
3
be made.
come out.
Yeah, on Switch right now.
Yeah,
and so it does seem like. Does EA at least have FIFA on Switch? I feel like there is.
There was a FIFA.
There was
I don't
a point,
think they do it
but
anymore.
they didn't sell to their expectations.
Yeah.
At least one of them was NBA or something like that. One of those games didn't.
I know NBA for sure was there, but maybe Switch owners aren't as likely to get scammed into Ultimate Team. I don't know.
I mean, I also think like a lot of those examples you did give Blood. Not all those are day and date though with the original releases.
Sure.
Like the more taxing a game is, I think those are they're like ancillary projects. Like, hey, this game has come out, but how do we keep monetizing it? Mm-hmm. Let's commission. What's the name of the studio that ports all the Switch games? I keep forgetting about the one that did Doom and Wolfenstein. I don't have it written down because we're supposed to talk about it.
But it's outsourced.
Yeah.
But it's outsourced. But they do a fantastic job. And they're probably gonna Nintendo should buy them up as like their Blue Point Studios, basically, essentially. But like the point is, let's monetize this game even further. Let's outsource this to someone else to do a best of the possible port job on Switch, but like it'll look good, but like it's not going to be like what people are lining up day one for. Mm-hmm. I know they were trying originally to do some day and date ones with some of the newer Bethesda ones that fell through the cracks and aren't happening anymore.
Right.
But I think once the new consoles come out, you're going to see less and less of this.
That's why I bring that up. Yeah, I think that gap gets even wider.
Yeah,
with the next generation.
exactly.
So I don't think you can say it has no impact on. That's what he says is like us and our software, we're going to be fine. Is like, you're right, but those third-party people are going to be more affected.
So I think, yes, you're exactly right, Kyle. That's a good point. I think third parties are going to feel the pinch the most on Switch. They're going to look at Switch and be like, it's not as valuable to us anymore as it is to be on PS5 or Xbox Series X, like right now.
Yeah.
But Nintendo's going to be churning along. Like, you're going to see a lot of articles being like, buy a Switch and a PS5, buy a Switch and Xbox Series X. Like, people owning some combination of Switch and one of the new consoles.
Yeah.
It's going to be like Wii 60 all over again, like that. But like, whichever one or possibly both get adopted, because Switch is going to see as like a companion system, like, oh, this is my handheld system, you know? And Nintendo's first-party software is going to continue to sell like hotcakes on there. But when you see a game that no longer can come out on Switch because it's like, you know, too high-end, like the port jobs just like won't be good enough to cut it on the Switch's current hardware, you know, maybe that Switch Pro will come along and ease things up, you know, maybe. But until that's not rumor and actual like reality, that's what third parties are looking at. They're just like, they'll have to come up with those unique games that are crafted for Switch, which are more of a risk. Obviously, Switch has a bigger install base, so it's a much safer proposition than like Wii U. That's why you got no support. But I think it's even safer than Wii because it's not relying on motion controls as like the big selling point. It's more of a traditional
that's
system.
the thing. Like, that's why you get a lot of these things that are coming out and doing well, because it's just like it's not as good looking, but hey, it's the same game and I get to take it with me, you know, and keep playing it. So
yeah.
And if you have a long commute, just how valuable that becomes.
I think there is a funny thing. I think Sony and maybe Microsoft still is saying, hey, there's still some features left in next gen that we haven't talked about yet.
Yeah.
I can see where you're not scared of those new features. So like, let's say, you know, like Rumble and controllers back in the day, that was like, oh, we need that. We need to do that now. That's what our competitors doing that. It's great. We all need to do that. And so, I mean, maybe the new solid state drives that just, you know, negate loading will make the Switch seem stupid. Like, why do I have to load in Switch games? You know, maybe they'll get there, but it is hard for me to imagine a feature of next gen. Kind of like what you're just saying, Blood. It's hard for me to imagine a game that won't in some way be able to work on the Switch. And so I can see why he'd say,
yeah, we didn't like. We obviously didn't even bring up the whole thing with like cloud gaming services. Obviously, Nintendo did state on their own that like they're interested in the technology, but like in terms of their own development, they don't see it as where it needs to be yet. But that doesn't like preclude someone else from coming in. Cough the rumored like collaboration between them and Microsoft to bring xCloud potentially to Switch.
Whose chips?
Tegra, NVIDIA.
Yeah. NVIDIA just launched their thing this week. It's been in beta, the streaming service.
Oh yeah. Like that. Like if
NVIDIA and Nintendo partner up with that, you know, and then like, okay, now you're playing games that look better than the PlayStation 5 on your Switch.
We're getting closer to that reality where like there is a workaround solution for this. Like, but I mean, they haven't spoken about this though, so it's leaving us to, you know, like do the guesswork for that. On the flip side, you know, there was a recent like survey, something went out from like Sony asking people about remote play options on PS5 and stuff, like bring up Switch stuff or whatever, like seeing how interested people would be with the potential of playing their games on the go somehow.
Or shoot, even if in my living room.
Yeah, or like even locally, like that close. It's like
that's pretty cool.
Like it's causing that dialogue to happen. So like, I think it will have. You'll see some development with third-party support on Switch, maybe like a waiver for a little bit while they focus on the new consoles and stuff, because a lot of them like can't afford to miss out on that.
Yeah.
But I do think it's not going to be doom and gloom for Switch. Like they'll probably be in the best position of any system in like probably 20 plus years that they could weather the third-party support storm better, and there'll be a return to like, oh, we're still seeing some decent third-party support on Switch. It's still there. Yeah. It didn't just magically vanish because there's this technological gap between the new systems and Switch.
You know, I don't think it's a confirmed number, right? Because we don't have numbers, but like people are talking about that, you know, it's pretty widely believed right now that the Switch sales have surpassed the Xbox One.
Mm-hmm.
They were very close to doing because we don't have them. We have up to a certain date, but like it's been some time since that date. They most likely have surpassed.
So he's like saying, buddy, you think I'm scared of Xbox?
Yeah.
He's like, I get that. Yeah, it's like. Yeah.
I mean, but the saying goes like those systems like PC, like Xbox, PC, PS5 have always been in like their own little like environment where like games will just run, especially since like their architectures, they've like adapted such similar architectures. It makes it a lot easier for those games to run on them, and like ports and stuff like that and upscaling like that. It's just like assume that you get a third party game unless there's some exclusivity deal, you're getting the game on all those platforms. As always, Nintendo has been like in this weird kind of like the Venn diagram, like next to it, like how big has that like overlapping space been? And I think with the Switch, we've gotten the most overlap since the GameCube, basically.
Yeah, it's a lot of I think a lot of people have both. And I think even like Matt Piscatella had some statistics, at least in North America, of what that looks like. And yeah, it was like 40%. Of like people who have a PS4 had a Switch. It was like a ridiculous number.
That's
maybe
very
30.
that stuff. I'm like
super high.
like would actually absolutely expect to be the case.
Yeah.
We had 2 patron questions regarding this. I think one was from Wavy Chula. I think we've kind of a little talked about it. They just want to know like what do we think Nintendo will need to do to not be affected by the release of PS5 and Xbox Series X. I mean, strong software lineup and like still working with third-party publishers. So like, what is it going to take to keep games coming on there? Obviously,
and it remains to be seen what the cross-gen strategy is. Period. Like how many games are only going to be PS5? How many games are going to be both PS5, PS4? And if they're doing that, how much harder is it for that also to include Switch? So it's
a good point, because that seems to be the first real split between Microsoft and Sony in terms of like everything's been so similar, and then we get the reports that Microsoft's like, oh, we absolutely are pushing for exclusivity on Xbox Series X. Like you will get games you can only play on here in PC, but like not on Xbox One. Backwards. I got it backwards. Thank you, Kyle. You're like, wait, dummy, you're dumb. Xbox wants them to be you're gonna be a few years before you even see exclusives on Xbox One. Sorry, the cross-gen will be going on for quite a while on there. Whereas Sony is like, you're getting some PS5 exclusive experiences that you can't get on PS4 very soon. After like probably right at launch, you'll probably have something like that.
Schreier says at launch.
Yeah. And that's very different philosophies right there. It's kind of nice to see that. Just wanted to acknowledge that.
Sure.
Morgan's question, there's one part of it I think is a little bit interesting.
The rest of it, not too interesting.
Let me rephrase that.
Yeah, all right.
We've covered most of this.
Got
There's one more interesting part
Cool.
that I don't think we touched upon really, as the other 2 consoles have been investing more in the way of service and value for their customers. Should something happen with the economy where people need to turn to value, can Nintendo remain competitive with Switch and their quote-unquote Nintendo tax? So Nintendo does put a premium on its games and its services. So is that something that should be a concern to them with the new consoles coming out?
Nope.
Yeah.
They're going to get away with Link's Awakening for $60 for the rest of the generation. They're going to get away with it.
Yeah.
I think this is the reality.
Yeah.
And like even in the face of when they're like not doing well, they don't waver from this.
Yep.
They almost never waver from this stance. You will be paying full price till that game becomes a million seller, and then even they don't do that much anymore. The million seller thing, like it's like maybe in a few years we'll give you like $5 off.
I know.
For a weekend.
Yeah.
Remember that? What was it? The tickets or whatever? Like
The vouchers.
The voucher system.
Those were cool.
That
Hey,
was
I
like
like the
that
vouchers.
actually was the first time I was like, oh, okay. I'd like to see more of this actually.
Yeah.
But yeah, Nintendo.
Oh,
is,
but man, that online app. Oof.
You know what?
What's funny is, it's not premium. It is cheaper, but I feel like the value you're getting for it is cheaper.
The value of the Nintendo online service has been going down steadily. They're not. They need to do something this year, hopefully. I mean, they don't have to. They can continue doing whatever the heck they want. But for me personally, it's getting to a point like you're not adding any more games to your Super Nintendo. Like, where's more Super Nintendo games? I know you said it's gonna be sporadic, but like, not this collection sucks now. Like, I'm getting bored of this.
I mean, and it seems like Nintendo, the NES games were at least pretty consistent.
I'm not even getting SP versions of Super Nintendo games.
Right.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
where's my SP version of something? You're not even doing that. Like, it's just reeks of they've kind of like given up on that aspect with no real reason why. Like, I thought maybe, they're just gonna start selling them on the eShop, like direct, like individual games and stuff. That hasn't material. There have been collections, but Nintendo hasn't said anything about doing that
They haven't
themselves.
had anything to do with Nintendo,
And then, yes, they do amazing support for Tetris 99, but anything else coming?
I think there's been one Super Nintendo update, and they added two games. They added two Super Nintendo games and two NES games.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. And the NES games they added were kind of neat and weird.
Yeah.
It was Crystalis and
That was the Crystalis update, I think.
Yeah.
the one other one I forgot. But
Another title I'd never heard of before.
it's just the value proposition for that's just going down. It's
Yeah.
like you got to give me something soon, or else I'm just might just unsubscribe for a while, unless I really need to play online someday for a new game. But you're not giving me a good reason right now.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess Animal Crossing,
Yeah.
but after Animal Crossing, it's like, hey,
Yeah, but after Animal Crossing is like a year and a half, at least for me.
they got blood.
I mean, how much online are you going to play at Animal Crossing?
Oh, I mean, that was a huge thing with 3DS. And actually, I've already seen people in the old 3DS group, like, they're starting to resurface it. They're starting to wave the banners. Like, hey, it's about time to get this thread active again.
That's pretty cool.
It's so funny.
That's really
like,
cool.
The fever is
the only Facebook group that's, like, had any value to me. You know?
It's really funny, Blood.
That's Bloodworth's going to commit to that. But I have to admit, the fever is starting to catch on. I think I'm starting to get a little bit like, Animal Crossing New Horizons. I might begin this day one just to capitalize on like everyone. I don't know if I don't want to miss it.
Sure.
I think for that first month, I might be in.
Yeah.
After that first month, I'll probably be out.
Yep.
But
Digging holes, finding some fossils.
Yeah, maybe a week.
Can't hurt. Yeah.
Maybe a week. We'll see. But yeah. A lot of this, though, we need to like this. We're just also assuming the software part. We really need to see this direct. We need to see what they got in store.
Yeah.
Like, there's been so many rumors going around, not about the direct, but like what games they have coming out in the rest of the year. It's getting to that point where there's being so much chatter. It's like, give us something. Like, just talk about stuff, Nintendo.
What's so funny is I've come to respect the value of games that we haven't seen too much of. So, Metroid Prime 4 was a bad announcement, and it's been too long since they announced it. However, it's at least a thing that people think about and associate when they think of the future of the Switch. And so I think that when these next-gen consoles do come out this fall, there at least needs to be 2 or 3 unreleased Switch games that people are looking forward to.
Yeah.
So there needs to be games beyond games, and that's the way to combat it, is to keep people excited about your consoles, actually to have a list of games that they're just still anticipating.
I agree.
Weird.
I need that list.
Yeah.
I need the list, Nintendo.
Sometimes games that we don't have are more valuable than games that we have.
Speaking of Nintendo presidents making statements,
All right.
quick thing, former Nintendo president Hiroshi Yamauchi.
Worth Googling, reading that Wikipedia article
man.
if you're not familiar with this person.
Yes.
Look through some old IGN.
Oh,
bits,
yeah.
man.
So a statement they made back around 2000 has resurfaced, making the rounds on social media, and then got picked up by a few like news sites just like reporting on it again. This is a lot of fun stories about Yamauchi's thoughts and philosophies on the game industry during his long tenure, like 50 years, I believe, as president of Nintendo.
Basically up till Iwata.
Up to Iwata, exactly.
Yeah.
Iwata was their successor. This quote is about why Yamauchi believed in Japan the Nintendo 64 was outsold by the original PlayStation. So this is a debate, and you've read arguments all over the place about whether it was cartridges or
format,
CDs, losing Squaresoft and Final Fantasy, charging too much, to their third parties, all these great arguments about why that fallout happened. But according to Yamauchi, the top brass at the time, Yamauchi claimed the N64 was less successful in Japan than the PS1 because Japanese gamers like to be alone in their rooms and play depressing games.
I mean, that's obviously translated, right? So I gotta wonder what what the precise language is there. Depressing games is so funny.
I think more specifically, they were referring to RPGs.
It sounds like
and
it,
that
right?
they like to be more like an isolated environment.
Well, and I also he's probably also referencing like Resident Evil and Metal Gear,
All these games they didn't get on their system.
Yeah.
Well, but also games that are, the quote unquote mature tone, right? Like they're not colorful. They're not something that you play, with your kids. It's a very different style than what Nintendo was doing for the most part. I mean, Nintendo has definitely had their things. I mean, what's funny is at that time they were funding and developing Eternal Darkness. So what other example do you want?
I mean, RE Remake was one of the Capcom 5 that we talked about, right?
Yeah.
And RE4.
But those games were post Yamauchi, because
Eternal Darkness was an N64 game first.
Yeah, Yamauchi announced in 2000 he would be resigning at the end of in 2001, and Iwata would be named his successor. But yeah, a lot of the I don't know. So you know what? It's interesting to see this, but it's also interesting to go back and think about things every president or someone who is in a position to speak on behalf of the company saying something. Even Iwata had some statements about online that were questionable for their time. It's not really Iwata, but we still love you and stuff. Everything else about you. Sorry, you were gonna say something, Kyle.
So to me, I don't. It's a salty statement.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's actually that different from what Furukawa said. I think he's saying, hey, it's a different market. We run different tracks. And I think he's saying it in the saltiest possible way. He's saying, we make a different kind of game for a different kind of people, is to me what that statement actually says.
I love how you drew this conclusion, Kyle. The similarities between them. Because, yes, Hiroshi Yamauchi was known definitely as a business person.
Sure.
The business came first, whereas Iwata was a gaming background. Also, president, he did have the executive background as well, but championing games and game developers. And now that we're with Furukawa had been at Nintendo for a while. He comes from the financial department. Mm-hmm. He is more of a business person. So it'll be interesting to see going forward under Furukawa's tenure if we start seeing more of a Yamauchi type style from him versus
he's doing
Iwata
great so
style.
far, though.
It's been pretty balanced so far.
Yeah.
I don't feel it's also very early, so we'll see. Mm-hmm. Very, very curious to see how that turns out. Straw Hat Ninja just wanted to point out, greetings allies, Yamauchi's comments about the PS1 versus N64 surprised me. As much as I like the N64, I simply think the PS1 was a better designed console overall. Choosing cartridges over disc inevitably hurt it. Otherwise, we would have got Final Fantasy VII and N64. Love and respect.
Oh yeah, I mean we don't.
Just pointing. Yeah.
The actual conversation about why the PlayStation was better, doesn't need to be had.
Right.
But this does bring up an interesting thing.
But being surprised by anything Yamauchi said is, I couldn't be.
Multiple episodes of this show about Yamauchi statements and go down that memory lane. But this does make it's a good opportunity to reflect upon Nintendo has Nintendo's had low points as well. Mm-hmm. Obviously they're riding a high with the Switch right now. But Tanner wants us to think about some low points here. Yamauchi said something similar about people who play RPGs, despite the popularity of Nintendo's Pokemon at the time. Yeah. And around the same time, dismissed Microsoft's entries into the game console business as an inevitable failure. Mm-hmm. Yamauchi would retire in 2002, but Nintendo in 2002, but I doubt he was the only one at Nintendo who operated on these beliefs. So I'm wondering, in your
I'm not
opinion,
sure about that.
what was the most humbling moment for Nintendo that really changed their way of thinking? Love and respect.
I don't know about that, man. Yamauchi, like you're saying, he's the business guy. I really think he was in his own world sometimes for some of the things he would say. I mean, obviously he was leading the company. But I really he was just very much of he's just gonna throw his opinion out there. He's like an old general pretty much. It's I'm successful, you're not. I'm gonna say what I'm gonna say. I don't really care. He and like that. It was one burn after another.
Yeah, it's funny because I think you could say Virtual Boy is their biggest failure, but I don't believe he was ever humbled by it. And like the moment I think of most humbling moment for Nintendo, I think it was unprecedented and still hasn't been matched, is the price cut from the 3DS. I think it was 6 months or shorter after the console had launched. Iwata apologized profusely to everybody who had already purchased a 3DS, and then there was the program for free games, free NES and Super NES games. I forget what it was called. Early Ambassador program?
Ambassador program,
Yes. Where they gave you a bunch of free games, many of which never came out on the 3DS for sale. You just had to luck in and being an ambassador in the first place. I don't think that's ever been matched. We're going to give you free games. We're so sorry that this happened. We're sorry that we're cutting the price. But I think they were so taken aback by how unsuccessful the 3DS was at launch.
Yeah.
It
was really a moment of like, we have to turn this around now.
Yeah, and they did.
Yeah.
And that's the craziest part is it worked, and then the 3DS obviously became very successful.
That's a really good example there. I think that was one of their. I just remember the bow and stuff, like the apology, like dude. That is a very big deal. I mean, everyone's always go to the obvious one, like we talked. You said Virtual Boy, but like whether or not they viewed that as a failure, but like Wii U. Huge. Another one, but I think that's been like covered to death. I mean, but I think the most poignant part of that is like just the botch of the reveal, just not having not understanding and needing like 2 whole E3s, almost 2 years to try and convince people what the concept was and failing. Like that should have been like a red flag right there. Like maybe we should stop and like rethink this. Like let's let's not what this seems like a bad idea. We got to do something. And naming, was it as simple as picking a different name or something? Because everyone mistook it for Peripheral and stuff. And it's like, oh, geez. Like all the anecdotes of people coming into GameStops and stuff going, can I get the Wii U gamepad? And like, you need the system. No, I just want the gamepad for my kid's Wii. And like, no, it's a whole system. It's like, how, like, that to me was just like so weird because they've been so on point with messaging. Like, that never seemed to be a problem for them, and then all of a sudden, like this, even with like 3DS and stuff, was like, yeah, they didn't make the sales, but like the concept was very easy to understand. This was just like, I just couldn't believe what I was seeing.
Yeah,
like they were so proud of the Wii name. Remember before the E3, like we revealed it because we wanted you to get all those dirty jokes out of your system and stuff, and just focus on the games when we come to E3 in 2006. And they're like, oh, we're patting ourselves on the back because we did such a good job with this name, and in turning it from one of the most unique, like successful names into like you added a U and you ruined it.
Yeah,
like this is you completely missed the point. That was just like I feel like that hopefully taught them an important lesson because you saw they came back with Switch and it's like I was so worried about that system's name. I was like, oh dear, please get this right. And when
before you heard Switch,
and then when they did the premise video, like the concept video, and like the snap, I was like, oh, and then pulling, I was like, thank you.
Yeah,
that was probably what they spent the most money on was getting this right.
And the software the Switch launched with was so encouraging.
Yes.
I would say, yeah.
Not just another game that looked like HD Mii's running around. Like, was their concept video. It's like, no, this is not what I want to see. I don't want to see Wii Sports running on my... That's not the first thing I want to see about Wii U.
Yeah.
I want to see that Zelda demo you showed off later that never came into existence.
Right, yeah. It's funny for something, going through all that stuff and, like, talking about, like, old announcements and stuff. I remember what was really funny is when the first NX reports came out. It's when we were at Nintendo for the Splatoon preview event, and so Reggie comes downstairs and he's like, "Hey, we want to acknowledge that we announced that we're working on a new system. We're calling it NX. We're not going to say anything about it. Enjoy Splatoon." They got a whole room full of reporters.
We're not going to say a thing about it. That's
in
so
your
funny.
building.
Yeah.
No, it's probably what?
NX.
Bye, Reggie. NX.
But so you know what? They had to announce NX so early again, so people didn't lose faith in the company.
Right.
We had it was basically their way of acknowledging that, like, hey, we're riding out Wii U for the rest of this thing's life cycle, but we have plans.
I mean,
it's too late to save this stupid thing, but we have plans.
One of the shortest life cycles, though. Because Nintendo traditionally gives everything almost like 5 years.
Yeah, it had to go.
Did
dude.
not.
It had to go.
Did not get its time.
Lastly, I think that breaking up with Sony to have a deal with what's the company? The CDI company?
Philips.
Oh yeah.
Just probably, I'm sure someone was ashamed. I don't think they're ever publicly ashamed of that, but I assume someone has to be so ashamed of that decision.
I think that probably led to the most salt
Yeah.
possible between Yamauchi and
Sony. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, between Sony and Yamauchi. I mean, that's the whole story. Is that like Sony got so angry at that, they're like, "That's it. We're gonna show you, Nintendo." Like,
And then they dominated the market.
it's their own fault. They created their own worst enemy. Yeah, they created their downfall during the next generation.
Yeah.
And then that led to Square Enix leaving them, which also caused a lot of Squaresoft, which led to even more salt. Just like mounds of salt during that era. It's like everything coming out of Yamauchi at that point was just like, hate everyone. It's all your fault. Anyway, yeah, it's nice to think about the mistakes they've made and how they can how they've adjusted to each of them. Because I feel like this happens to all the major, especially the big three. It's happened to Sony, obviously like going PS2 to PS3. We got to learn a little bit here. And then more recently, 360 to Xbox One with Microsoft.
Do you know what I think the big turnaround for PS3 was? The character Kevin Butler introducing a price cut.
Kevin Butler.
I honestly think that was a huge pivot
Kevin
for them
Butler.
and their public perception. Yeah,
Wasn't his appearance something with a Nintendo system the thing that got him in trouble?
it was a car tire commercial, but I think they were using a Nintendo
Like
console
the
in
Mario
the car
Kart
commercial.
wheel,
Yeah.
Mario Wii wheel.
Yeah, it's so dumb.
So disappointed.
Yeah,
with that
no, you're
ending.
right. We see these kind of pivots from time to time. It's cool.
I've got one quick little statement, quick story from a patron, and two final questions
Sure.
to wrap this up. This first thing comes from Space Dom. Not a question, just a sweet story. A couple of years ago, a friend of my brother was confined to the hospital for several weeks due to an operation. So my brother and his friends pitched in and got him a Switch so he could while away the hours in Breath of the Wild. He made a full recovery, and this week he returned the favor and bought my brother a Switch. Not wanting to feel left out, I got him some eShop credit, so now he's all ready to go with Smash Ultimate, Untitled Goose Game, and Binding of Isaac. He loves the snappy menus and the fact that he can take his favorite twin-stick shooter, The Binding of Isaac, on the go. I'm very happy for him and hope you are too. Thanks, Space Dom.
Nice.
This first question from me, 123, is about something. I think these next two questions I feel are for Kyle.
Wow.
Okay.
Okay, I'm ready.
All of us can answer them, obviously, but like I feel they heard you were going to be on the podcast, and like we got to know Kyle's takes on these.
Wow.
Nintendo's recent financial report has mentioned that Nintendo is working with Illumination Studios for the upcoming Mario movie.
Yeah.
And how they're proactively involved in development and production of this movie. Their estimate of this movie coming out would be 2022. That would be year 5 of the Switch existing, and also the 5th anniversary of Super Mario Odyssey on the Switch. There was also a 4-year gap between Super Mario 3D World, which came out in November 2013, and Super Mario Odyssey, which came out on October 2017. My question is, if Nintendo was really working hard at making this Mario movie, would it be wise for them to make a second Mario Odyssey, or would they try and do a tie-in movie game promotion that could reboot the franchise? Thank you, allies, and I hope you have a fantastic day.
So here's what's strange is any other day, I would say no way. I'd say no.
Okay.
I'd say Nintendo's designers are too proud of Mario. They're too good at their job. They do not need, the people who designed Gru to tell them what to do in a video game. But you're right. They brag about how involved they are with this movie. Still no. I'm going to say no. There's no tie-in video game. Maybe promotions. Maybe, Smash Bros. Will have something going on, a new Mario skin. But no tie-in game. Final answer.
Okay.
Right?
I agree with you, Kyle. I mean, do you have anything to say on this?
Yeah,
Blood, or?
Mario, very particularly, is so led by design, like industrial level design. Like, this works because it feels good kind of stuff. That, like, I can't, other than, like, maybe somebody introducing a character in the movie that somehow gets into the game, I can't really see there being anything that could potentially, be seen as a crossover.
And the idea of a reboot is just no chance.
Yeah.
The Odyssey is just the best-selling Mario game in years and years. Like, no way.
I think the theme park is like the extent, the movie and the theme park.
Yeah.
Like, you're seeing what they're doing with the theme park conceptually. I think that's where you'll see any of this stuff, like the most of it. But to your point, Kyle, I think maybe it's Smash Ultimate in 2022. You see a Minion assist trophy.
Yeah.
Like, that's it.
Okay.
This Minion shows up, assist trophy.
I love it.
That's it.
What's crazy is what I thought this Mario movie would be is what the Sonic movie is. Is Sonic appearing in a real-life, real-action thing outside of his own world? That's what I swore this Mario movie was going to be.
It's all going to be CG.
That's great.
Yeah.
The entire movie is CG. Do you think it's still Mario popping out of his own world, though? I still do think it is.
I hope not.
You think it all takes place in, like, Mushroom Kingdom?
I get so sick
We've heard
of
nothing about what
these movies that, like,
right?
we're going to bring back Smurfs, but it's going to be, like, some stupid thing in New York. Like, who cares? Like,
It's the easiest way to write that, though.
And that's exactly what the Mario Brothers movie is, right? It's just like, here's the Mario Brothers.
How are they
and they're doing some stupid thing in New York.
Like, the comedy they're going to do for it, because there's going to be comedy in it. They're going to try comedy.
Yeah.
It's like, it's going to be slapstick, right? Mm-hmm. It's going to be, like, goofy stuff. So it's going to open, like, I don't know if it's going to go to the real world. I mean, I could see it.
Hire
Kyle,
the guys
like,
that used to work at Alpha Dream. They need to be in on this.
We're already talking about former employees of Alpha Dream.
Wish.
Yeah.
That's like the reality of Founder never going to happen.
I hope they make their own platinum, by the way. I hope they all just
Yeah,
team
they
up.
should. And they should make original games that, make Nintendo sorry they don't have them anymore.
Yeah.
No, like,
But again, it's like if you want to look for examples, like you've got to go to like those spin-offs because the main Mario games don't have anything, right? Like you've got to get those guys that were writing that stuff and like, Mario and Luigi games, Thousand Year Door, like get those kind of influences in there rather than, Peach made a cake and Bowser kidnapped her.
No, it's not gonna. But I mean, there'll be a celebration of combat. Like, it's absolutely gonna start. Like, they will go with the plumber route. There'll be Mario and Luigi. We'll just be working in Brooklyn.
I really hope
and
not.
they will
really
like go
hope
down.
not.
It'll be the cartoon
That's
thing again.
so-
they'll
love
end
it.
up in the Mushroom Kingdom,
Yeah.
and they're just gonna be like, "What is this world and stuff?"
You wish.
And then like they're gonna be established. They're gonna just be having a normal day at the Mushroom Kingdom at Peach's castle. They're gonna be like gathering there for some event, and Bowser's gonna crash the party. And
Some after-school kids producer has completely tainted you, Damiani.
Yeah,
None of that stuff has anything
like,
to do with Mario. It really doesn't.
here for sure is what's going to happen.
Okay, what's gonna happen?
There is going to be a hip hop song almost as inappropriate as Gangster's Paradise. There will be some hip hop song. It's just gonna be like, "Where am I?" Like, absolutely, that will happen.
What will absolutely happen?
Yeah.
Is there will be some kind of pop song in there
Yes.
of some top 40 song probably. What's gonna happen is I bet they create an original new character who they're like forced to be like, ew, this is gonna be like the focus of the movie. Like,
Yeah.
it's gonna be like, because it's gonna be like Mario
I get
and Mario
this.
versus Bowser and Peach and Luigi. That's not cool enough for a movie.
Yeah.
We need a new character.
It's
We
so
need
it's-
Toy Story's Spoon character.
So yeah, it's like, so what I imagine is like a meek teenager is just like, all my life I grew up in Mushroom Kingdom watching Mario jump around. You just see him like boing boing boing. It's just like, but Mario's been captured. I guess it's up to me. And so it's just about like this stupid kid named Roy and like his stupid adventure, like trying to like save Mario. Like, for sure, dude. Yes. Yeah, it's about a new original character.
You think they'd make the same mistake of the live action Mario movie? I love that movie as a comedy. Like, it's hilarious, and actually, it's a fun movie to watch.
Like, creatively, visually, it's kind of
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
The one mistake I think they make is they take too long to get like into like whatever their outfits basically.
Yes.
I mean, I wish they got a little bit sooner. Then they start doing the goofy
That's
stuff.
when you're hyped.
Yeah,
Yes.
they start using their explanation for how they do their power moves. Watching this movie, Kyle, if they go with your idea,
Yeah.
Mario and Luigi are like myths and stuff. Like they're telling the stories. They're just not around. They
Yeah.
don't show up to the end to be like, "Oh, good job, kid. You know,
Yeah.
you saved the day." And it's like, that's not what I wanted.
Yeah.
I wanted Mario and Luigi, and you gave me this dumb kid.
Yeah.
Why?
Because they don't want Mario to talk.
But then we found out it's a prequel, and it was the origin story for Waluigi.
Ooh, this I like. Waluigi Origins.
He's like, you were like, they weren't nice to me.
Yeah.
Like, I saved the day. They gave me a pat on the back, and that's it.
And you just see like his mustache turn and just like the angles on it just go. Heck yeah.
I do wonder how many characters are going to cram into that movie, but yeah. I'm cautiously cautiously optimistic.
Fair question.
But yeah, as to your game, it's probably not
There
happening.
will be another Mario game within 4 years, and it won't be that. It won't have anything to do with the movie.
There, you heard it there. All right, our final question from Rammer. Hello, panel. There was a recent report that Game Freak is moving into Nintendo's new Tokyo building, along with a few other Nintendo partners, having instant access to Nintendo's most talented developers. Do you believe this will help Game Freak's development in the future in regards to the Pokemon series? Also, do you ever see Game Freak being outright acquired by Nintendo? Love and respect.
Well, the core team of Nintendo is in Kyoto, so
I thought they all moved to Tokyo. Isn't that the big story?
I don't know
This is the-
story,
this is the
but
new
I
office-
think this is a new building.
There's a new offices they're opening, and they're trying to like consolidate, not consolidate, like just put yeah.
But so
Yeah.
you're saying a lot of people are staying in Kyoto. So
I don't see. It would be
Everyone-
really, really difficult for me to think that Nintendo would uproot from Kyoto because they've had new buildings there.
I don't know.
Too.
I don't think they're leaving there, but like this is.
But there is the EAD Tokyo that has worked on a lot of the Mario games.
Okay.
Yeah, it's Kozumi's over there. Yeah.
yeah.
I think this is what they mean. Is like they're going to be moving into one of Nintendo's main studios instead of being off-site like they were before. But like other developers are moving there. Like the rumor that people are trying to see.
I wouldn't be surprised if Monolith.
That's what people were talking about, like
yeah.
that, like because they already have 4 different studios. So it's like people were suggesting that Monolith stuff like just take all of them and move them into that one location there to like streamline stuff because they're becoming so instrumental to Nintendo's development and projects. But back to the question at hand, do you think that Game Freak will utilize any of that Nintendo talent there? And do you ever think that Nintendo will ever outright acquire Game Freak?
Okay, so to the first question, heck yeah, I do. I think there's already a lot of collaboration, honestly. I think Nintendo actually already helps a little bit. But yeah, just to see Monolith's contributions to Zelda, obviously we don't know what was what. We don't know how much they contributed, but you can just feel it. You can feel the influence.
Wait, to Breath of the Wild?
To Breath of the Wild, yeah.
Yeah.
We absolutely know what they contributed to that.
Oh, well, like specifically?
Yeah, there's like interviews and stuff out there about the development of Breath of the Wild. We don't know about Breath of the Wild 2 if you
Sure,
mean
no.
that.
No, I mean, how much did they help with Breath of the Wild?
They contributed on previous games, including previous Zelda games, which we don't know what they did on those specifically. But like the world design and stuff on that, they were like Nintendo was struggling with like they would change something on something in one part of the world or like crash something else there, and like their team, the Zelda team was not used to open world design, so they're like, hey, Monolith stuff guys, like Xenoblade team, can you come in here and like just help them out with some of this stuff?
Yeah.
Like just get some basics down. And they're like, oh, here we go. And they're like, ooh, you're pretty good at this, let's bring more people in and stuff like that. And like they were very instrumental in helping realize that overworld in that game.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, obviously then yes.
And then for Breath of the Wild 2, they've been hiring for like, even dungeon stuff. Like that's why people are assuming there's gonna be dungeons. To even like one of the positions even alluded to potentially like story writing or something like that. So
cool.
They seem like they're even more heavily
Monolith
involved.
helps a lot with his
But
games.
I like what you're thinking, Kyle, because like when I think of someone to help Pokemon and realize more ambitious Pokemon games, I do think of Monolith Soft helping out that overworld in a new Pokemon game.
Yeah.
That wild area, if only Monolith Soft had handled it.
To the second question,
Yeah.
Game Freak owns 1/3 of the most lucrative merchandising and IP in the planet. So no, Nintendo could never afford to pay for a third of them because it's like, hey, do you want a huge sum of money every year for the rest of your life, or just like a pretty big sum of money right now? Like, no. Like, if you're Game Freak, you believe that your Pokemon income is going to be crazy for the rest of your company's lifetime. There's nothing Nintendo could offer you.
I was gonna say, I think it's more that Nintendo,
Yeah.
like, there's nothing Nintendo could offer that's worth it because, like, they're just gonna keep making money. It's gonna keep printing money.
Yeah.
So Nintendo does have a ton of cash. They do have a ton of money. But I don't think that's what they're interested in. Like, having, as you said, the most valuable media IP in the world. It's like, sorry, Nintendo. You can have a piece of this, but you're not getting the whole thing.
Yeah. In a weird I don't know.
I mean, I won't say never is never.
Yeah.
Like, things could change, but as it stands right now, I don't see it happening anytime
There's
soon.
just no incentive.
There's
The most
no
I could
good
see
reason
is,
for
like,
it.
the gaming division part of it. Like with like Game Freak being, like, as close to being completely managed and operated by Nintendo proper, but like it still has oversight from, like, it goes up to, like, the Pokemon company and stuff as well. It's like I think they're so intertwined. Like, it's really hard to see them separating or something like that. But, like, specifically the Game Freak, they're still gonna remain. They're going to still want to retain autonomy on some level.
Yeah.
But, like, in terms of, like, I meant the game development part of it. They might concede, like, okay, Nintendo, you can step in and have more of your teams help make the game. And, like, you have creative oversight on the game. But, like, that's not changing anything at, like, a higher level, though. Like, we're never going to concede to that stuff. But, yeah. I mean,
I always wonder what their obligations are. Because Creatures Inc. is like, we do the 3D models.
Yeah.
It's like, that is your entire contract. Yeah, we do, like, the character design stuff. Like, oh, okay, all right.
It's like, it's like it feels like the most complex relationship because, like, even with, like, with not Hudson, jeez, HAL, holy crap, HAL
okay.
Laboratory. It's like trying to say PAL, HAL Laboratory, and intelligence systems where, like, Nintendo's involvement with them, but, like, they don't outright own them. It's like, oh yeah, you got to remember that and stuff. It's like, but, like, they really don't do anything for anyone else anymore. It's like, we're Nintendo basically. Whereas, like, Game Freak's like, we can make games that aren't.
We're gonna put Little Town Story on the PS4.
Yeah, sorry about that, Nintendo. Yeah, we're gonna make mobile games without we don't need you.
Yeah.
Like, I think they do like that. Although nothing besides Pokemon has been anywhere near successful, I think, for them, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So that could be the thing Nintendo always holds over them. It's like, about that. If
What are you gonna do?
Yeah. If Pokemon starts floundering, what are you gonna do about that, Game Freak?
gosh.
That would be a shame.
No way.
You gonna make money off Tembo?
Yeah, that'd be a shame if this new deal we got going brings Temtem to Switch.
Oh my gosh.
They're not scared. Game Freak's
I
not
know
scared.
they're like they'll be like
scared.
they're like, sure, bring your Temtem, whatever. See
Yeah.
you in a year with our 16+ million sales in a month and a half. Yeah, not gonna happen. But it's nice to dream.
I think it's one of the strangest deals in video games. That 3-part ownership.
It's one of the most strangest, and it's one of the ones that I think a lot of people just constantly mistake things because it's so easy to. Like, you just say, like, in Pokemon, Nintendo.
Yeah.
It's like, well, technically, and it's like, I mean, I do it all the time. I just don't care anymore. I'm like, you know what? To the average person, they don't know the difference. It's like, just who cares? But, for those of you who do know the difference, and appreciate it, I apologize whenever I, don't get those things right. But, hey, let's make it easy. Game Freak, sell to Nintendo.
It's like, to me, like, it's just as likely like Game Freak buys Pokemon from Nintendo.
Yeah, like,
right? They have, like, equal ownership. Like, it's just as likely. It's crazy.
Yeah, like 20 years from now, they're like, hey, Nintendo, Pokemon, remember the glory days, but now it's, like, dead and gone.
Mm-hmm.
Can we just, like, make a deal and, like, do a Kickstarter to bring back
God. Someday, dude. Someday there will be a
the
Pokemon
Pokemon
Kickstarter.
Kickstarter? That will be the day.
Yeah.
And then people are like, I have some concerns. How much money did they make off of these games? No. I think that's going to wrap it up for this episode of Friend Code. real quick, for those of you who submitted your questions, thank you very much. If you would like to submit a question for consideration for a future episode of Friend Code, our $5 and up patron tier is where you can participate in that. I'll make a post the week we are recording a new episode calling for your question submissions. Also, as part of our $5 tier, our early access tier, you get this episode as well as episodes of other Easy Ally shows and podcasts early. For everyone else, you get them for this show. You get them on Friday. Thank you to however you support this show through Patreon or just by watching it on YouTube or listening to it on any of the various podcast services. We also got some shout outs for the month of February 2020. Shout out to El Thanis, Greg the Dark Knight Kettering, Caleb Togi Crawford, Will Schmuck, and Mr. One Luigi. Shout out.
Shout out.
We just doing it on every podcast?
I have no idea
So
what
like
you
Ben's
wanted to
got
do.
a different process.
Oh, I mean, I was on there, but I was like,
Yeah,
are
so
we
I
doing
think
the
you need
cadence?
like a process of shout out unique to this podcast.
Oh, I just want all of us to stay in sync.
Okay, all right.
So let's do it again.
Yeah. You gonna give us a countdown or what?
And Mr. One Luigi,
Shout out.
Okay, nice.
There you go. Got it right. Thank you, both of you, for joining me on this episode. Recording late after the group stream. So, woo. Fun stuff. Temtem.
Coming to Switch.
Wait, is it?
I think eventually, like
Oh,
probably
really?
probably not within a year. I think I think they're that
warning.
far
Oh,
out
sure.
based off where the game is right now.
Do you think the game will actually properly have a release this year? Or do you think it'll be in early access throughout all of 2020?
Great question.
It's hard when you start saying like MMO stuff or even just RPGs, right? Because like, what is it? Edge of Eternity or whatever, the like JRPG that's not actually by people in Japan. That it's doing really well, but it's like it's been in early access forever.
Yeah, what's funny is I think actually being a huge success in early access keeps it prolonged for longer.
Yeah.
Could this be like another Fortnite situation where it
Yeah.
just never actually has a full
Yeah.
proper release?
Hey, if you're making money,
Yeah, who cares?
why bother?
You
Yeah.
know, you don't have to worry about that stuff. Maybe they'll make enough money one day to buy Game Freak. All right. Well, that's going to wrap it up for this episode. So until next time, everybody, may the way of the hero lead to the Triforce.